I'm going to talk about what I call Web 2.5. So everyone talks about Web 2, which is things like wikis and social networking. And I think the interesting thing is actually going to be about what happens next when you use those things to deliver real value. But first, the story begins in a very bizarre place. I was doing some work. I used to be an innovation consultant full-time, running my own company, and I did some work for Tesco's, and they asked me to design an in-house creativity program. So they could capture 250,000 people's creative ideas. Great challenge. I'd been used to doing the ideas for clients, and I suddenly got, okay, there's a new way of doing things, we can empower them to do it. About a year later, Cadbury's asked us to go one step further and design an entire innovation process for them. And that began to give me the understanding that if you spend enough time up front making very complex things, usually things that professionals do, simple, anyone can do them. But you have to invest the time up front, and that's a rare, rare thing. But to go right the way back to a little bit of my story, because this leadership tends to be a personal story, Dwayne had a very different start. I actually went to this venerable institution, got one of the supposedly best degrees in one of the best universities and one of the hardest subjects that you can imagine, left university on Prozac and had no idea how to think, be, feel or do. Stanford in California, known for its different attitude to innovation and change to us. 22% of the world's billionaires are in California, which is pretty astonishing. Half in San Francisco, half in LA. Most of them come from people who've had ideas. You take out the rest of the billionaires who've basically stolen the public's oil or gas. It actually makes something like half of all the billionaires in the world live in California. And yet our economy, where we're told we want to be more innovative, we don't do what the Californians do, which is prize risk, creativity and leadership. The interesting thing about Obama is he is a leadership expert, not a technical expert. Very little content knowledge about how to run the largest economy on earth, but a lot of understanding about how to be a good human being. How to inspire people. So leadership really is an important thing. Yet in this country, people don't talk about it. So my kind of ambition is to take the thinking style and the heart style, if you like, of Obama and give it to young people. That's my life's mission. And the usual way of doing interventions in this country, and in most parts of the world, is by an expert. It happens to be a therapist, it could be a coach, a leadership consultant, a teacher, a professional, a scientist, doesn't matter, they're experts. And they govern the ideas, they have a monopoly on the ideas. But we live in a world that's a bit like that. 6 billion, going up to 8 billion very soon. We have a vast demand for leadership training, leadership skills in this country and the world. And the world won't really shift until we upskill people on how to be creative, solve their problems, be self-starters. We can't run the world anymore based upon the professionalized model of expert and user. Just cannot solve our problems. It's designed for a different way of life. We need P2P, peer-to-peer. We need to empower people to do things themselves without us in the middle. So I talk about peer pressure, one of the most powerful forces in the world, and it's affecting you right now. It affects every decision you make, and there's a lot of research that came out recently, new scientists, to say we don't even begin to understand how obesity, smoking, happiness, all actually influenced by our peers. Peer power is one of the most powerful forces on the planet, and social networking is an amazing way of galvanizing some of that. And peer-to-peer models give you affordability because you get the people who are you're used to pay someone to do something for someone. You get the taker to be the giver. So you immediately cut out a load of costs because you're not paying anyone anymore. You get scale by definition. You get participation, and you get what I call network potential. The power of us all when we network to do something really astonishing. Here's the big challenge of our time, the next few years. You take things like Facebook, MySpace, and Bebo, all these things, all this stuff that's social networking, that at the moment can deliver some stuff for some people, but not for a lot of other people. And what if you add previously professional tools and thinking that you scrunch down and squished out to be as simple as possible so anyone can do it? It's disruptive because people who have spent their lifetime doing this stuff don't want to get involved. NHS Direct had a lot of trouble being started because consultants didn't want untrained people giving medical advice. But it's actually changed the way the country accesses healthcare. So essentially the mission is use the next generation, this Web 2.5, some call it Web 3, but it's a very round term, to galvanise the mental capital of actually 14 to 24s to co-create a better future for themselves. So here's what Buckminster Fuller, great innovator, says. All of humanity now has the option to make it, successfully and sustainably by virtue of our having minds, discovering principles and being able to do these principles to do more with less. Which is kind of where I started. There's no reason why these tools shouldn't be available to everyone.